1958, I decided that I was on the ranch and we weren't doing very well. I decided maybe I'd go back down to San Francisco and try my luck again, in the art business. And so I went down in my old Studebaker car, drove down there. And my kids were very little. This was 1958. And I had all my paintings stacked on top of my pickup, all my abstracts. And one of them, my kid has it in Arkansas. One of them was on a board. It was 10 inches high and 8 feet long. By the time I got to San Francisco, we had to go through a snowstorm at Truckee, or the Sierra Nevadas. It got wet and it got warped. You never get the warp out of that. And maybe the others got sort of halfway ruined there. So anyway, I went down. I had a show down there in a gallery in San Francisco, and I was able to make it a group show with Bob's things and Jenny's things and Francis' things and Jesse's things. A little show, it didn't amount. And people would go by the window and say, "My God, people in Montana think they're artists." But from there, I one of my abstracts made a big show of the art in 1958 in New York, and another one of my paintings made a show in Denver, another one in Spokane. I came home and said, "To hell with that scene, the gallery scene." Never did buy it. I'm very happy to become a Montana artist, regional artist, and I'm very lucky that Yellowstone Art Center has my stuff. Very fortunate.
The first time I saw his work was the work that he sent down to Los Angeles, that body of that early wonderful abstract work he did, of the prairie, looking around him. And this was in the era of abstract expressionism in New York. It was the big movement in the world, a world of art. And Bill took that and he made it into something uniquely of this place. He had such a wonderful mind, and he was so sensitive that that's what he was able to do. And so those of us who really saw his work, and there were maybe 4 of us, 3 or 4 of us, knew that he was making important work. He was a wonderful colorist, absolutely remarkable colorist. He could see real color. So many people who are trying to learn to paint see surface color, but you have to know the color that goes down into the earth, the stems and the roots and everything. A really fine artist, you get that feeling that they have truly sensed what plants are and how things grow and so on. I thought, how can somebody be living in Montana and making this quality of work? Because it was at this level up here. He wasn't an amateur, he wasn't a wannabe, he wasn't a semi-professional. He was an artist, and there was no question about it to me.
I don't remember what year he came there from Winnett. That's where they was living then, and went to Grass Range to school. I think I was only with him 2 or 3 years in school. Maybe not even that, maybe 2. He never changed much, I didn't think. Not to me, he didn't. He was more interested in his art later on, but as a young man, why, he was just a funner, and we fooled around. He didn't go with the kids all the time, though.
My father died 6 months before I was born, and my mother was on the homestead in Winnett, 3 miles out of Winnett. And so when I came along, she had already had my 3 sisters in the homestead, and she had come from Minneapolis. So she went back to drop me in Minneapolis, and then she came back to the homestead a couple months later. That's all that amounted. But by chance, we ended up in this place. It was almost by accident. In 1935, we moved up here from my family. My mother was a widow. We moved up here in 1935, and those were the terrible tough years, 35, 36, 37, 38. I walked to high school 3 miles down here. They were terribly cold, and then there's a depression. We couldn't have been poorer. We couldn't have been more hard up. And especially since this is February today, that's why I have this complex about February. Because in February of 1936, it turned terribly cold. I mean, it hit 50 below zero, but it hardly got above zero for the entire month of February 1936. And this winter had followed one of the driest summers we'd ever had in 1935. And the only hay we had was we'd mowed some Russian thistles and a few weeds and things like that. And this is what we had to feed our milk cows, was the only thing we had. At that time, I used to sell a little bit of milk in Grass Range. I used to carry it on my back and peddle 10 or 12 quarts of milk in Grass Range for 8 cents a quart. That's how I went through high school, made my way through high school. It was my supplement to the family income. And then one of my sisters died in 1936. And so I don't like to talk about the dirty 30s and the terrible years.
Tell us why you don't like blue skies.
All because, I mean, I go back psychologically to the Depression. And that's where I had my formative years. And blue sky and the hot sun and the grasshoppers ate up everything. Even the armyworms came in and ate up everything. And the Mormon crickets came in and they ate up everything because of the hot sun. And we didn't raise any crops. And then there's the dirty 30s on top of it, the Depression on top of it. All of it combined, I blamed it on the blue sky.
Blue skies meant tragedy.
It speaks of so much decay.
It means arid country. We were always out here praying for rain. It doesn't rain out of a blue sky. If it rains, we're going to survive and make a living. As I look back on it now, it was actually a very good time to grow up because, well, in the first place, when it was a little rural town, and we had all that space out there to be boys. We had horses. We had a little gang. We fished in McDonald Creek, goldeyes, and bullheads and suckers, and we ate berries down there until we come out our ears. We went swimming in the creek. I was never very fond of school. I was good enough at it, I guess. I think I said once, and I said that in the book, that I could draw a picture of Popeye better than anyone in school, and my sister told me that most adverbs end in ly, so what in the heck more did you have to know?
I can't remember the first time I met Elvia. Isabel had told me about her, that she was a war bride. That's what we called them, of course, a war bride. And when I met her, of course, here she was just very French, looked very French, spoke with such a thick accent, I couldn't understand her. To this day, I have a hard time understanding Elvia. But so charming and obviously so much in love with Bill.
Mes parents, mon père et ma mère, étaient d'origine italienne, mais avaient presque toujours vécu en France. Mais quand la guerre de 14 a été déclarée, mon père, qui était encore citoyen italien, a dû rejoindre les armées italiennes. Plus tard, mon père nous a raconté des choses affreuses sur la guerre. Et il nous avait dit, pas de soldats dans ma famille, j'ai horreur des soldats. Les hommes ne sont plus des hommes quand ils sont soldats, ce sont des bêtes. Alors tu sais, ça nous avait foutu la frousse. Hein. En 1900, je crois, 24 ou 25, papa a acheté un bout de terrain dans la banlieue parisienne, à Villejuif. Et il y avait des terrains à vendre, c'était des grands champs, c'était des vergers, des fleurs avant. Il n'y avait pas d'eau, il n'y avait pas de route, il n'y avait rien. Les gens qui achetaient ces lots, là, pas cher, on les appelait les mal lotis. Et ils étaient vraiment mal lotis. Alors finalement, papa, avec l'aide de ses beaux-frères, des frères à maman, a fait une petite maison, de rien du tout, mais une maison quand même, pour nous abriter tous, bien serrés. La vie était très difficile, mais franchement, on était heureux. On ne se sentait pas compte qu'on était pauvres. On ne savait pas, puisque c'était comme ça. Et tu sais, il nous en fallait peu pour nous faire plaisir. On n'avait pas de jouets, on se fabriquait tout seul. Voilà. Et après, malheureusement, la guerre est arrivée. C'était terrible l'hiver, vraiment. Mais on avait toujours l'espoir du printemps. Et je crois vraiment, c'est ce qui nous a sauvés, hein, de se dire qu'un jour, le printemps reviendrait.
I was probably one of the luckiest soldiers in World War II there is. I didn't force anything. I just drifted. I just went where they told me to go. Actually, this is where I got started in art a little bit. Was in the army. First I went down to a USO in Salt Lake City, and I did a copy of Rembrandt's mother. I didn't know I could paint, and found out I could.
Bill n'est pas venu au premier débarquement. Il est venu peut-être un mois plus tard. Ça faisait une telle différence avec les Allemands qui étaient extra corrects, tu sais. Évidemment, puis on ne leur parlait pas de toute façon. Mais avec les Américains, c'était une explosion, mon Dieu. Ils étaient wild. Vraiment wild.
For the first time I saw evidence of war, in 1944, came into Le Havre, and there wasn't much left at Le Havre. And we sort of bivouacked outside in a little resort town called Etretat. And then all of a sudden they put us on the train, and were sending us to set up a general hospital on the front. For some reason, I don't know what happened. We set up our general hospital on the outskirts of Paris, in the suburb of Paris called Villejuif. We took over an insane asylum. They kicked out all the crazies and put us in. And that's our general hospital. And then so we set up our head there, so there I was right in Paris. Never planned to go there. And they said, well, what can you do? Well, I said, I can draw and I can paint signs. I knew they needed to paint signs, so they made me a sign painter. And they gave me a French sign painter to help me out. Later on, they gave me a German PW sign painter to help me out. And we had a lot of sign painters. But and then I was in charge of some French painters there at the house, the ones that had been part of the insane asylum there. I was in charge of them, the house painters, and they were the ones that taught me about painting. And the knowledge I acquired there has helped me even to this day, because they taught me what paint was made of. They told me how to apply paint. They told me all the techniques of paint. They showed me all the kinds of the brushes you use to put on the paint. See, in the art schools, they don't teach you how to apply paint because they don't know how to apply paint. So I learned this from house painters and a sign painter. It's a hell of a good education. I have to rest a while.
So what about your true love? How did you meet her?
The house painters, I was who I worked with, and taught me about paint. He invited me to a dinner party. And Melville was there at that dinner party the first time I saw her.
Et qui y avait là, ce grand escroc griffe, maigre comme un clou, kaki du haut en bas. Et il était là, il était tout à l'aise avec tous ces gens qui parlaient français. Lui, il se marrait comme s'il comprenait tout. Alors il était assis entre Marguerite et moi. Et moi, j'avais aucune idée de romance, rien du tout. Et je me disais que si vraiment il y avait eu un petit peu de romance, ça aurait été entre lui et Marguerite. Elle était mignonne comme tout. Et puis alors il y avait une petite fille qui avait eu la polio à côté de moi. Et elle n'arrêtait pas de passer devant moi, de se pencher pour le toucher. Elle voulait absolument le toucher. Alors finalement, je lui dis au dessert, tu veux être assise à côté de Monsieur Bill? Elle dit, oh oui. Alors j'ai changé de place. Et mon Bill, il a fait une gueule.
Second time I remember seeing her, they had a dance at the hospital, put on a dance. He brought over swing music, you know, and we were jitterbuggers, we were all jitterbuggers. Poor little French girls had never seen
He
them.
was great.
See, they'd gone through the occupation, 5 years of the German occupation. They hadn't a faintest idea what went on in the world for 5 years. They completely blanked out. And so they are having a hard time catching up to catching up to the jitterbugging swing music. They adapted. So I guess it started from there.
Oh, he used to be really good. And he was so skinny. Yeah, he was a long, skinny guy. Après la danse, là, il m'a raccompagné, presque chez moi, pas chez moi. Bon. Et puis après ça, c'est devenu un petit peu plus out of the closet, comment on dit en français, un petit peu plus connu. Alors il m'attendait au bout de la rue, je le voyais de loin avec sa cigarette, et il fumait constamment, appuyé au mur de l'hôpital, là. Et puis lui, il m'a dit plus tard que lui, il écoutait le bruit de mes petites chaussures en bois. Quand je venais, il savait qu'il l'entendait déjà de loin.
Did you speak any French?
No, I was learning it. I was learning it.
We
Did you
really
speak
had,
any English?
when we had a language on our own.
How bad? Most couples do.
Nobody understood.
Ma little devil, alors ça avait fait sensation qu'il m'appelait son petit diable. Mes sœurs avaient dit quoi? Tu sais, parce que je l'ai lu avec toute la famille autour, toutes mes sœurs, on était dans le lit là, on était tous dans la même chambre. Bon, ma little devil, j'espère vous compris. J'ai décidé enfin, si vous choisissez nous marier avec mon salaire de 2500 francs par mois et le supplément de 200 francs par mois, l'armée donnée à vous, c'est le fait que le futur n'est pas clair. Si vous voulez prendre la chance, il est d'accord par moi. Je peux promettre un peu seulement. Je ne puis vous donner vous beaucoup. Moi seulement suis-je assez. Mon capitaine dit ok, je vous aime, Bill. Everybody say vive
Vive
la
la
mariée.
mariée, vive la mariée, vive l'amour, vive l'amour.
Except those who said, my gosh, what did she sing? She couldn't marry a Frenchman.
Yeah,
They didn't like
it is that.
Yes.
Thank God I didn't understand a lot of French.
Then what? What happened next? You were
We got
married.
discharged. I got, yeah.
Did you s-
Yeah,
stay?
she was pregnant and she tried to go. I tried to ship her back on a boat. I had a job in Billings and designing neon signs, painting them, and I was making a living. I wasn't working very hard. I didn't mind. I'd work very, very hard to become a sign painter. I'd practice for hours and hours and hours and hours a day. It takes quite a hell of a lot of training.
À ce moment-là, déjà, tu savais qu'il était un peu artiste.
Oui, mais il en parlait pas. Non, tu sais, c'était pas encore.
Il dessinait pas trop.
Oh si, il n'arrêtait pas. Tiens, ça c'est un tableau rescapé. Il allait le jeter.
Pourquoi il n'aimait pas?
Oh, il voulait rien. Même mon portrait, il allait le couper.
C'est vrai?
Il allait le détruire, lui.
Pourquoi?
Parce qu'il avait pas été étudié. Il n'était pas satisfait.
I had started painting that in 1946 up here with Velvia. I'd started painting on my own. I started to paint on my own, and I painted people, and it was very hard to learn anything. I mean, I went through every book I could possibly find in art, and there wasn't that much to learn about it. But I learned, no one has ever written it down. Someone should write a book about what art is all about. What I had to learn, what I was grasping for, was composition and design. This is what I didn't know. I didn't know what in the hell it was, and there wasn't any book I could find to tell me. I couldn't find a teacher who could tell me. I finally had to sort of figure it out on my own. I mean, the drawing part was never difficult. I don't know, for some reason I could always draw. But I was looking at Rembrandt's, some of the Impressionists before I went to art school, and there was something there besides just drawing. There's composition, of course. There's a design. This is what you see in a painting, what I see. It's the only thing I see in a painting. Is what Matisse saw. It's line, form, and color. I don't see much more than that. Subject matter doesn't mean anything. They added, like Rembrandt, the attitude of the people is important. The attitude, but not the story. The story has nothing to do with it. It's the attitude. And this separates a great painter like a Rembrandt or a Degas from the common artist, a common illustrator. They're interested in the story. And that's literature. Nowadays, in a lot of contemporary modern art, most of those people, I think, should be writers. They're not painters. They're telling stories. It's not a visual language.
Bill avait beaucoup de travail, on était bien, mais il y a eu le GI Bill, tu sais. Ça veut dire que c'était un décret du gouvernement. Les soldats allaient être favorisés, on leur avait donné 4 ans d'études en université pour autant d'années qu'ils avaient servi dans l'armée. Alors Bill, il avait 4 ans. Alors il a décidé, c'était pas beaucoup, mais suffisant pour qu'on vive de ça. Alors on est allé à Minneapolis. Là, on a vraiment eu la vie de bohème. Moi, ça m'intimidait un petit peu, la vie de bohème. Mais il peignait tout le temps. Et on était on avait un petit appartement à Bon Marché. Et il y avait beaucoup de petits noirs. Alors Bill avait peint un portrait d'un petit noir. Et ce petit gosse, il a dit, est-ce que je peux le montrer à mon papa? Et Bill a dit, oui, mais bien sûr que tu le ramènes, hein, ici, demain, à la même place, sur ce banc. Et le môme, il est pas revenu. Et Bill a dû chercher partout ce petit black, ce petit noir. Et finalement, il l'a retrouvé, mais il l'a retrouvé, puis lui, on a fait faire une copie, je crois. Après Minneapolis, comme Bill avait promis à papa qu'il me ramènerait dans 2 ans, on a fait la même chose à Paris. Il s'est fait inscrire à l'Académie de la Grande Chaumière. Eh bien, il était très enthousiasmé, parce que c'était tout le contraire de l'éducation américaine. Là, il faisait ce qu'il voulait. S'ils avaient l'intention d'apprendre, c'était pas eux qui allaient pousser, c'était l'élève lui-même. Il venait pas, c'était ses affaires. Eux, ils s'en foutaient éperdument. Eux, ils leur prêtaient le studio, et il y avait des artistes de renommée qui venaient les critiquer, mais c'est tout.
The problem is the criticism were in French. We didn't understand. It was all. It was sort of a waste of time. It was sort of a waste of time. But no, at least I learned in France that you learned about being self-reliant. I mean, their education system wasn't designed. The fact the teacher had to shove it down your throat and treat you like a little kid in kindergarten, you go out and get your own education.
J'ai un petit truc là qu'il a écrit, et il dit que c'était l'ambiance surtout qui était importante. L'ambiance avec tous les autres artistes et les échanges de vues, tout ça. Et lui, forcément, il n'a pas tellement participé à la vie, comment qu'on appelle ça, la vie des bohémiens, parce que il était marié et il rentrait tous les soirs. Mais quand même, il a été quand même un peu introduit. Quand il est revenu ici, qu'il a fallu qu'il reprenne le ranch, il voulait pas, il n'avait pas du tout l'intention de reprendre le ranch. Pour lui, il allait faire sa vie en artiste ou même en peinture en lettres, mais il faisait bien sa vie. Mais comme sa mère avait eu tellement de mal à garder ce ranch, qu'il a fallu qu'on revienne.
I don't think my father could, well, I just don't think he had the gumption to oppose her when she said that he had to come back and take care of this land because it was so important to her.
Talk to us some more about ranching, Bill.
Ranching, I'm through with it. I'm through with ranching.
Was it good when you were doing it? Was that a good life?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's a very good one. Yeah, the freedom. A lot of anxiety and a lot. It's the freedom. Yeah, I'm a very fortunate person to have stuck it out. You know, of course I can blame that on my mother. She was the one that stuck it out. Because it takes 3 or 4 generations to acquire a farm. It takes that long for 3 or 4 generations to collect enough money to own it, you know. It takes that long in the road, you know. No farmer has enough money to go out and buy a ranch, except Jane Fonda.
On a d'abord vécu chez ma belle-mère et puis on est venu dans cette belle maison-là, air conditionné. Et puis évidemment, ils nous ont donné 6 mois, tu sais, les voisins. Jamais on pourrait garder ce ranch. Bill, un artiste, et moi, une femme qui venait de Paris, tu parles. Eh ben, on les a eus. Parce qu'il y en a qui ont fait faillite, et pas nous. Et pourquoi? C'est parce que Bill n'a pas vu en grand. Il n'a pas fait tous les emprunts. Parce que dans les années 50, il vous aurait prêté 1 million, si vous vouliez. Parce qu'ils encourageaient les rancheurs à s'agrandir. Et Bill, il a dit, pourquoi que je voudrais m'agrandir, moi? J'ai assez de travail pour moi. Lui, sa mentalité Et sa philosophie, c'était qu'un homme ne devait avoir qu'assez de terre pour que lui et sa famille survivent. Il n'était pas pour les grands ranchs, pas du tout. Et le fait est que les gens qui ont vu trop grand, ils n'ont pas pu payer leurs dettes. Parce qu'il y a eu des mauvaises années aussi à ce moment-là. Au début, on n'avait rien, on avait que le ranch, les barrières étaient toutes cassées. Ça nous a pris des années à le remettre en route. Alors bon, enfin quand même, peu à peu, on a tout de même arrangé la maison un petit peu. Et tout ça sans un rond. Hein.
Economically, it was a struggle for them, and I could see that from an early age. I never wanted for food or, clean clothes, but for instance, a can of Coca-Cola or something was a huge treat. We didn't have those kinds of treats very often.
Well, when you're 30 years old and when you're 70 years old, there's a big difference in the way you think. You're more adventurous, I came out of art school. I hadn't painted anything. I hadn't painted anything. I made a couple of paintings. I didn't know where to go, what to do, And I painted realistic things. And, you had all these movements in art, For the first in Minneapolis School of Art, they wanted to turn me into George Brock. Well, I paint still life like George Brock. And and in Paris, all I did is just draw and paint a few models and think and look, and I couldn't find a direction. I didn't know what in the hell to do. And I came back to the ranch, and for the first 2 years I didn't do a damn thing, except walk. But then I'd already seen Pollock's stuff, and de Koonin's things, and so forth, and I became very interested in the fact that they'd made me see things out there in this world and on that hillside out there that it never dawned on me before. Why in the hell of name of God do we have to paint what is panoramic? Why can't we paint things that are very close to us? And so, what is my interest in that hillside? I don't know. I finally came to an analysis. There's the textures and the patterns and the tones and the little shapes and so forth. That's why I like that hillside, which is just as interesting as a panorama. So I started to paint it and rearrange it and compose it and then put it into different rhythms. The rocks and the brush, and put them into a different rhythm, and then exist there, which is an arrangement and what the composition is all about, to make it pleasant to look at, and make it interesting to look at.
Your work has never been, how do you say, picturesque?
No. Yeah, I was fascinated by the ugliness of it, the rawness of it, the movement of it, the hardness of it. This one, that's me. I'm not dainty, I exposed my lifestyle. That had something to do with my temperament and my mental processes. And why would I consider a bunch of dead brush and a coolie beautiful? I don't know why. But it says something to me. I don't know. Because I was born and raised here, I'm pretty sure.
La collection qu'il a perdue à Los Angeles, tout le monde dit que c'était formidable. Moi, je ne l'avais pas encore compris à ce moment-là. Je comprenais pas très bien tu sais, l'abstract. Maintenant, je comprends. Et puis dans les années, la grande chance qu'il a eue, c'est de rencontrer les autres artistes en 1950. Il a rencontré tous les gens de Bozeman, tous les gens de Billings. Alors, tu sais, ils avaient vraiment une grande amitié.
I got a little lonesome sometimes, and I would take trips to Bozeman, or to Billings. I'd go down and visit Isabel, or I'd go down and visit the Luises and spend a few days and get to recharge on what was going on and talk to artists. I miss talking to artists once in a while. I get a little sick and tired of talking to ranchers all the time.
What I started to understand after a little bit of time was that there was another part of our life that the other children didn't have, and that was the friends that my father had in the art world, and you might say the bohemian circles of Montana at that time.
Bill was just one of the people that we just loved to be around, because he was always full of stories and always full of energy, and he was cranky most of the time, and he was, he expressed himself very colorfully, and he always had a commentary about what was going on in the world. So he was a teacher, in those terms. We would make, periodic ventures up to that kind of alien part of the country. It was alien to us. We grew up in Bozeman, in Gallatin Valley and the mountains all around. Central Montana was it was a very different kind of country, and especially on the Stockton's ranch, which was very, very pretty sparse country. And so it was all an adventure for us to go visit them, because it was new territory.
He and Isabel had the closest relationship because they admired each other tremendously. Not mainly because, but one of the reasons was because they both were ranchers and understood the land, looked at the land with a rancher's eye and an artist's eye, understood the problems of living on this land out here, so isolated, and always understood underneath why their work wasn't selling here, why it wasn't understood here. That was very hard for them. I had been to New York to art school, and I'd had certainly my horizons broadened tremendously, because I'm from Montana too. So looking at their work, I could see their work and knew that they were quite wonderful. Certainly tried to get their work recognized, but it's very hard to do in Montana, because we are just seen as such a backward place with a very uneducated public, which is very unfair, but some of it that's true, particularly in the visual arts.
What did you get paid for your mural?
Oh, and the mural
That
and
guy's design.
oh yeah, that saved the farm. Literally saved the farm. It was 1959. We had to just come back from San Francisco, and we used up all our money, and then getting back, started on the farm again a little bit, And this came up. I got $1,000 for it, in 1959. And so, wouldn't that be worth $10,000 now? Or 6 or 7 anyway. And they saved the farm.
And so that's done on plywood. And oil. So you painted it up there, or you put the down? You painted it down, and then
I painted it right there.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah, that was scaffolded. When I was painting it, I had to bluff a little bit, because I'd been a sign painter, I'd been a Bozeman painter. I knew how to paint large, and I knew how to paint fast, So So I had the sketch there. All I had to do was copy it. You know, I didn't have to invent anything anymore. All I had to do was copy the sketch. So for once, I was sitting out in the middle of the bank looking at it. You know, I'd started it up there. He came back past me and he says, "Come on, let's get to work. Let's get it painted." You know, I said, "I'm thinking. I think I'll have to go out and do another observation on this." Well, what I was doing, I was killing time. I didn't want to. I could have painted the thing in 2 days, but I stretched it out for about 10 because. Because I knew they'd gripe about the price, you know, so I stretched it out.
Il faisait beaucoup d'affiches publicitaires, soit à Billings, soit à Great Falls. Et quand il était loin d'ici, il s'ennuyait tellement qu'il s'est mis à boire un petit peu, quand il était triste. Et et lui, il n'avait pas le vin gai. C'était plutôt le contraire. Il était très déprimé et puis se sentait très coupable et très malheureux. Et moi je comprenais pas. Je comprenais pas que c'était une maladie, tu sais. Maintenant, je me rends compte que c'était vraiment lui qui souffrait plus que moi.
One of the things I remember so well about him is that he had that kind of a bark of a laugh. And it would usually come out when something had happened at the ranch and in his life that was just awful. The typical rancher's life. You have awful things happen thanks to nature and animals and everything else. And he would talk about it and then he'd give that laugh, which was his way, I think, of just settling it into himself, because it was uniquely him to me. He accepted the misfortunes of being a rancher, but it was tough, really tough, raising sheep and so on.
Il me disait, j'ai jamais vraiment trouvé, ou j'ai jamais vraiment décidé. Et là, je crois que je vais le dire en anglais parce que ça passe mieux. I never quite decided whether I was a sheep rancher who was doing paintings or a painter who was raising sheep.
Yeah, my father took great pride that he was a sheepman and not a cattleman. But the decisions to raise sheep on this particular ranch, on this particular piece of land, was a good decision. You know, because he was able to make a lot more revenue, a lot more production off of this land than he would have had if he was still trying to raise cattle. He took a real affinity to the animal. He did. He liked them, and he was able to build up a herd of pretty nice sheep, starting from just some really old sheep that he was able to buy.
C'était moins cher d'acheter des moutons, surtout si tu achetais des moutons assez âgés. Tu payais moins cher et tu prenais un risque, évidemment, qu'il ne soit pas de bonne mère. Alors nous, comme on était fauchés, quelquefois on achetait pour commencer les bêtes de 7 ans. Et parfois elles étaient bonnes mères et parfois elles n'étaient pas. Et de là, Bill a commencé à faire une grande sélection. Il gardait que les meilleurs. Et moi, après, il a eu un très beau troupeau de moutons. Il est même devenu très fameux. Quand on allait les vendre à Billings, ils annonçaient au haut-parleur que c'était les moutons de Bill Stockton. Et Gilles, quand il a repris le ranch, il a gardé les moutons.
So, Bill, what made you sit down and write today about some hay to feed the sheep the coyotes did?
Oh, no, I hadn't done any drawing in years, and when the lambing season here, I started to draw again, you know. So I went out and studied sheep and studied them. So right now I'd have a hard time drawing a sheep again. At that time I knew what to do. So I did all these drawings of sheep. So then I started writing about the drawings. The drawings came before the text. I couldn't get that through a publisher's head. I wasn't illustrating the goddamn book. It was just continuation of the drawing. That's all. The reason I did it is a simple reason nobody had ever written about the used side of being a sheep. You know, they wrote all these other crappy things about the sheep business, but not about the ewe. So I wrote a story about the ewe. She was a heroine, not the sheep business. Not the sheep business. I thought someone sometimes should write something about the side of the old ewe and drew drawings of her problems, because she has problems. That's why I wrote the book.
It's because everybody around here disliked sheep and had nothing to do with sheep. He had to discover them for himself. Like, he was the only person ever to raise sheep. But I think when he growing up early in the 20s in Winnett, a lot of the people that probably picked on him and were drunks were cowboys. He disliked cowboys. He disliked the nomenclature, the whole like kind of attitude. He really disliked the macho attitude. He just absolutely hated it. So he really liked the gentle nature of sheep. You know, the way they interacted with the landscape, the way they only kind of ate what they needed and moved on. Well, this was my grandfather's studio. I can't remember what year they built this. I mean, it was definitely before I was born. So all my memories of Grandpa were in this room. Every day after school, this was my first stop to see what he was up to. He was almost always up to something, and you can never tell what it is. He always had something to show me. After school, he always had something ready to show me, or he had something for us to go do. Every day, all summer long. It was, not much of it was involved with art. Most of it was setting coyote traps, going fishing, going to play golf, Grandpa kind of stuff.
Want to see my golf swing?
Yeah, sure.
Watch me take out the dandelion. Watch me take out the dandelion.
My oldest daughter and her husband, they loved to golf. Well, all of a sudden, Bill decided he was going to start golfing.
Oh, yeah.
And he called it pasture golf. And he'd get out in his field, and you'd see him swinging the golf club. Well, that went on for a while, and then one day he come up and he said, "Susan, come on, let's go swing some golf. Let's play some golf out there on the railroad track." And so they went across there, and I happened to notice, and I said, "Bill, when did you get the orange balls?" He says, "At least I can find them in my hayfield." He says, "Them white ones I couldn't find too good, but the orange ones I can find."
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah,
dang it.
golf balls all over his
All
field
over his
down there.
hayfields down there.
This was Grandpa's experimental room. I mean, I suppose you've been focusing a lot on the artwork and the writing, but he was an artist when it came to about everything. I mean, everything he made. Like these chairs. Like this chair is made from pieces of an old plow. He designed, welding things, made things with twine. He was 100% original person. But I remember him experimenting how to make it. I mean, he, get the plastic bags. I remember he tried to put them in the microwave, He'd just sit there and, just invented how to do it, even though he could have learned how to do it. Had no interest.
For the first time, in years, the first time I felt that I was inventing something. Another woman's vest. Made women's vest because then I didn't have to do is felt so much wool. You know, they're smaller. Well, I got a vest of my own. This is a big, big Parker. This is a big, big one.
Put it on, Bill.
Huh? Oh, I can't. I don't think for women. No, I said I wasn't. I was too agnostic to be another Christian Dior.
He was always an innovator in everything that he did. And where he came up with the idea of using an arc welder to make metal sculptures, steel sculptures, I don't know. But he did. And to my knowledge, no one has ever used that technique to do as refined a work as he did. What he would do is he'd take nails, he would buy old nails at a farm auction, and with that he would build an armature of the, say a head or a torso, and then using the beads from the arc welding, he would build up the fine points of that sculpture, and he got to the point where he could do a portrait.
This woman is really beautiful. Ophelia.
Ophelia.
Mm-hmm. This is Cain, you know, when he's trying to hide from God. After, now, this one is in a Wesley house in Bozeman. This one is from Crime and Punishment. Raskamanov. I don't know what's his name. This one is a friend of, she has it in her house. St. Francis. That's the one, the first one he made, Dana Forbes owned it. Mary.
This one.
Mm-hmm. This is the surrounding of Chief Joseph, surrender.
I went up to his house to visit, and I caught him arc welding. And he had watched me, every time he'd come in, he'd watch me weld, you know, and he'd ask me a few questions. But there he was sitting on that stump and with that can of rusted spikes, nails, staples, whatever he could get, and made those heads. God, he did a good job. I just can't believe how he made things out of that.
For some reason, people identified with him. My sculpture more than they ever identified with my painting. The simple reason, maybe it's because it's three-dimensional and has a weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was the subject matter, I don't know.
When he sculptured the Kennedy head, I had saved some papers from the Kennedy assassination. And Bill would come up, he'd say, "Get your paper out. I want to see it." Then, pretty soon, why, the head come up. Kennedy's head would come up and sit on my table, and Bill would compare it to the picture, and then he'd go back home, and then he'd bring it up a couple days later until he got it the way the way it should have been.
The way it
you know,
was.
The way it was, yeah.
He was always setting himself up with a goal of mastering a technique. And once he mastered that technique, he wasn't that interested in that media anymore. And I think it took him 5 or 6 years to figure out that he had done everything that he could with that type of welded sculpture. And it really bothered him because it was popular and people were demanding work from him. And it hurt his back because he had chronic pain in his back. It was hurting his eyes, and it was just bothering him because he didn't want to do it anymore. But he kept doing it for about another 5 years, and then one day he just pretty much said, no more.
Function of an artist is in the doing, not in the done. It's in the doing. If you're fortunate enough that someone buys it and it helps out your income, fine. But start off, it's an avocation in a sense. It's not a vocation. Treat it as an avocation, and work at something else that is worthwhile. Because I don't think, as an artist that went to school and so forth, I have no more importance in this world than my grandma, who made those beautiful quilts. And she didn't make them to sell. She didn't send them off to exhibitions. She did them to have something to do. And she wanted to create something. That's all that matters. This commercialism in art, that we have to sell art for very high prices to collectors. And I don't know, it's a little bit of snobbery all over, you know. Snobbery on part of the collectors, snobbery on part of the artists. Paint for that function. I think that's the wrong function. The function is to do it. That's all. Do it. Shut it off for a while.
My father's back was bothering him so much, and he was really not very old. I think he was about 55 years old, and he just flat told me that he couldn't do it anymore, and that I had to take over the ranch. And that was 1975. So we ended up doing that, and that freed him pretty much to, you know, do some of the most productive part of his life as an artist. He had trouble giving up the role of being the rancher, the patron. You know, he had trouble giving that up. But after about 5 years or so, he got to drinking a little bit less and sort of settled into the freedom that he had. We were paying them, buying the ranch from them, and that gave them some annual income, and he started selling some work. He had another facility. He had a photographic memory for visual things. You know, that was very unusual for him to work off of the actual landscape or the actual object in front of him. He would look at it, he would commit it to memory, very detailed, fine memory, and work on it at his time in his studio.
He would basically get the landscape done in about 2 hours. Painting would pretty much be done as far as you could tell. But in his mind, it needed tweaking for the next few months, and there'd be paintings sitting around, and he'd always have one up on the easel, and he would be laying down and just looking at it, and then he'd get up and look at it. He'd come over with his pencil, and he'd just do this little tiny thing right there, and that would be it for the day. So like he'd finish the painting, but then he'd tweak it for months, and sometimes even to the extent we'd go get it framed, and we thought it was done, but he'd take it out of the frame, and because something in it bothered him, and you never quite understood what it was.
Il me demandait toujours mon avis. Et bon, j'étais contente de lui donner. Quelquefois, je lui disais que, tu sais, quand il a commencé à vendre, tu sais, son prix, c'était à peu près 3000, tu sais. Alors, quand il peignait, pour lui, sa grande idée d'un tableau, il faut de l'espace. Même dans un film de cinéma, il lui faut de l'espace. Tu vois ce que je veux dire? Il ne faut pas que ça soit chargé. C'est comme une pièce de théâtre. S'ils ne font que bavarder, il trouve que c'est pas bien. Il faut de l'espace dans tout. Alors bon, alors quand il commençait à peindre des sceneries, là, pour moi, il y avait un petit peu trop d'espace. Je lui dis quand même, tu peux bien rajouter un arbre ou deux, si tu vas vendre ça $3000. Alors, il me disait, mais ça n'a rien à voir avec ça, tu sais.
I can't look at coolies anymore the same way. I mean, since I've become very familiar with your work, I drive around Montana and I am more fascinated with the coolies now than I am with the mountain scenery.
You know, I do too. I look at that hill there. I never really see the hill, I see his painting. Isn't that something?
It's the power of art,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I really see his painting before I see the real stuff, you know?
J'aime beaucoup être dans la nature, chasser, pêcher, marcher dans les montagnes, partir à cheval. Et ces peintures qui ne sont pas réalistes, mais ont cette chose incroyable de, pour moi, faire ressortir ce que j'ai vu précédemment dans la nature, l'impression, l'émotion qu'on peut avoir devant un paysage ou des arbres, des fleurs, un buisson, enfin le genre de choses qu'on voit ici autour, où c'est vraiment la nature qui est restée très sauvage, ou si on prend la peine de regarder d'un peu près, surtout quand on marche à pied et qu'on chasse, il y a énormément je dirais, de micro-paysages qui apparaissent. Et évidemment, si on aime ça, il y a certaines émotions qui sont là et que Bill avait été, parce qu'il était toujours dans la nature, il avait le talent de pouvoir transcrire sur ses peintures, ou dans ses peintures, ces émotions, cette atmosphère.
I talked about that a little bit in the brochure that we did for the Art Center. You said that you liked this one quote that went, he rarely does panoramas, vistas, or pastoral scenes. He doesn't see the land that way. He sees the mess of thickets in a coulee as truth. He sees the thorns as fact.
Yeah, that's very true. I couldn't, you said it, I didn't have to. That's exactly how I feel about it. I have no explanation for that. I have no explanation. Because after all these years, I don't know where my thoughts and my notions have come from. I've lost track of that. I think I looked at a couple of Cézannes, and all of a sudden I saw what Cézanne had painted, a pine tree, and I think that influenced me a great deal. So it was after I'd seen I'd seen this Cézanne that I saw the same thing here. You know, I saw the similarity, which turned me on. But I mean, after Jackson Pollock, I became fascinated by and it fit me because it was my limitation. I could compose with repeating patterns. I enjoyed this. I wasn't the type of artist that could arrange objects. I didn't do that very well. But I could arrange repetitive designs, so why knock me out? As I said, this is my philosophy. A man's limitation, this is genius. This is my limitation. I was too dumb to compose like the Italians composed. I couldn't compose like that. I had to compose this way. So I discovered that Jackson Pollock exposed me to that, and so did Cézanne.
So do you think you found your freedom through your limitations?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He was my customer, and my brother's customer. And we knew the tools that he used. We felt like we knew Bill very intimately. I think both my brother and I loved Bill from the moment we met him. He is the essence of this place. He's not easy. He wasn't easy. He wasn't particularly charming. But he was so authentic. He was so true.
Why did you choose cattle markers?
Oh, that just fit my nervous disposition. I used to get mad at oil because it wouldn't dry fast enough, or it dried unevenly, and so forth. And I did a bunch of watercolors at one time, and they all sold out. I didn't mind watercolors. At one time I painted in tempera. I got a hold of cattle markers because I'm very, very impulsive, and I want to see something happen right now. With cattle markers, I can create that, make it happen right now. Right now, and I can do it in my pickup. I can do it anywhere. The convenience of it, you know. And by the time I got into cattle markers, I had learned enough about painting, so I knew I could get anything I wanted out of that cattle marker, except a very small fine line. I found out how to do that because of its limitation. I couldn't do it, but. What? See, because you have to invent. How about the pencil, for Christ's sake? Save me.
Save
huh? Me? Yeah. None of my art would exist. It was finished off by a pencil.
Cattle markers were, you know, the paint that he bought primarily from me. But you know, I remember when I brought in a line of cattle markers that were fluorescent. And Bill said, "What in the world would people buy that for?" Because all earth tones. I mean, not even bright, you know, reds or oranges. I mean, his color tones were always earth tones, greens and browns and grays, pastel yellows. But it was always the same.
Now, see, every once in a while we paint a picture, and it becomes an orphan. Only the artist likes it. You know, it's true. Only the artist likes this one. I love the thing. I don't know why. See, but it's not very decorative. It's not very decorative like the one I just showed you. You know, which is a little bit nicer. This is not nice. Very nice, and then the name of it is Pine Grove and Regiment. My Pine Grove series. So it's again you see my fascination with the repeat. Repeat and make a design out of a pattern. And see, I'm not interested in making a pine tree look like a pine tree. I'm interested in these funny little shapes that I can find. You know, this is a tall woman, you know, and her skirt is blowing out from under her. You know, she's in the wind. And why do I have forms like this? See, forms like this. This happened when I was putting on the paint, you know, and then I started to wash it with turpentine. And that's the brush stroke, and it came out this way, and it came out that way, that way. I said, "Oh God, I sort of like that. I think I'm going to keep it." So I kept it. And then certain things get isolated. At one time I had this color all the way through this painting. You see it peeking through here all the time. So So then I decided something was wrong and needed something. So I worked in this surface of yellow. But this is how I try to keep a painting interesting, is that without getting too messy and too busy, to keep the surfaces that when you look around it, you see little tiny variations in the thing, and little gestures and little textures, and that's what I try to paint. There's only two colors in the damn thing. You know, it's very monochromatic. I like all my. These are the pawns up here, you know, and then a little blue pine tree. So I started the landscapes, and the farther I got in, and the more I got into landscapes, I found how much there is out there. You can't possibly cover it all. There's no way you can cover it all. You can go on and on and on and on and on forever and ever and ever and ever. You know? Since I'm born and raised in this country, I painted what I love about it. I think that's all there is to art, is to fall in love with something and then explain why you love it.
I think I'm 73 years old, and I think paintings I've painted in the last 3 years, the landscapes, are probably the best things I ever did. It was very strange it took me that damn long to learn. And then maybe it took me that long to be a little more honest. But my landscapes, all I ever see out there are abstractions. It's all I'm looking for. An abstract design.
It's taken me a while to understand, go past just the idea of the subject matter, understand the technical masteries that he was able to put into his work, and the vision, the understanding of the natural landscape that we have here on my ranch, you know, and his love for that, to understand that all three of those elements come together in that work.
How did you feel when the Art Center came along and offered you a large chunk of money for a major?
It is such a relief that I didn't have to worry about them anymore. That they were going into a safe place that came out of my vault out here in the garden.
Your garden.
And they went in and they went into a safe place, you know, and I didn't have to worry about them anymore. Yeah, that has been a relief. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the money, you know.
But it helps.
Yeah, it helped.
Miriam Sample was a patron of the arts. Wonderful patron, wealthy woman, and she talked over with us the people we felt we had to collect, certain people. And Bill was right up there at the top of the list, and she was a woman who had spent quite a bit of her life in Chicago. She knew the Chicago Art Institute well. She had a wonderful eye, intelligent woman. But she began to help us purchase work, and as she was doing this, she set up an appointment to go out to Bill's in Elvia's place, and Bill ended up bringing in, there must have been 70 pieces he brought in for us to look at, painting after painting after painting that he had stored away in a hole in the ground or something. I mean, he had buried them, I think, got them all out. It took us all day. We were there all day going through art, his work. And it was a wonderful day. We just had a wonderful time. She often told me it was the happiest day of her life. She just loved every minute of it. So that's great. To have a patron like that it's a godsend. Very few museums are that fortunate in this part of the country. And she ended up purchasing, I think, 67 paintings. And then Bill added a few more himself as gifts. She gave him exactly what he wanted. He knew what he wanted for the work. And she was very generous. She never cheated on anybody, particularly artists. She loved artists. It was a wonderful day. We just had a splendid time. And Elvia fixed us one of her great lunches. She's the cook I wish I were.
I think that, before I was born, I think that he went through a lot of frustration, with the art community, but he really appreciated, all the recognition he got later in life, and it was a surprise for him, but he wasn't frustrated about it by then. I think earlier in his life he kind of went through that phase of being frustrated and not being able to really make a living, but the person I knew was definitely different from, I think, the people who had longer relationships with him, like my grandmother and father. It wasn't always rosy. I know he had a lot of pressure from his mother to really knock it off, quit with the art and just focus on the ranch, But, the person most responsible for his success is Grandma. Simply because if it wasn't for him and, my dad and Chick and having the responsibility of the ranch and a family, he probably would have went the way of Jackson Pollock or, a lot of other famous artists. He would have probably drank himself to death.
Les gens me disent « Oh, quel dommage que ça a pris si longtemps ». Et moi, je leur dis non, c'est pas dommage. Au contraire, c'est très bien. Parce que si c'était arrivé plus tôt, il aurait été comme bien des jeunes artistes qui ont du succès. Ça leur monte à la tête et ne cherchent plus à faire de... Il n'y a plus d'innovation, ils peignent tout ce que les gens veulent et ils perdent leur identité, pour ainsi dire.
He was dying in the living room. We set up the living room in their house there as a kind of hospital room, and he was dying. And a committee came to give him the governor's medal for achievement in art. And what he said, it's not the Legion of Honor. So he was happy to get it, but it wasn't the Legion of Honor.
He had been nominated and chosen, and he died before the ceremony, so he wasn't there to enjoy that wonderful honor. Elvia was, but Bill wasn't there by then. So I can hear that bark of his laughter, that ironic acceptance that he wasn't going to be there. Yeah.
He wanted attention. He ran away from attention, but he also was attracted to attention. And so if he'd had more success and did not have this land to keep him grounded, he could have lost his way very easily. Because of his wife and because of the land and because of their economic struggles, he was able to live a very ethical life. His life had meaning, and he personally was a very ethical person.
How well do you think your whole life has been integrated between your art, your sheep ranching, your painting, your sculpture, your writing?
No, it all fit in. It all fit in very well, Yeah, I was very happy being out here, and I would have been stifled if I'd stayed the rest of all my life on the left bank of Paris and been confined to Montmartre, you know, and to that environment. I could have lasted 2 or 3 years if I'd run out of gas. I couldn't have taken that life. No, I couldn't. Because I needed vacations from art. Ranching gave me vacations from art. On the other hand, painting gave me the vacation from ranching. So it was a good arrangement, a very, very good arrangement.